Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have to talk about the disaster that is Hollywood, and it is right now. In order to avoid bad optics, Hollywood is on the verge of layoffs, but they don't want to quite get there. They're going to do everything they can before you start to see things crumble, and that includes offering large targeted buyouts to a whole mass of people to try to prevent the actual layoffs that are required so that they can simply survive. It doesn't matter if it's animation or some other element of the business, they've got to do something. So we need to talk about it. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, please double check you're still subscribed to the channel. In other words, look down below, make sure that that button down there says subscribed. If not, it's red, and I need you to turn it to gray, please. And then hit the bell icon and turn all notifications on so you don't miss anything. And while you're doing that, which I appreciate and say thank you for very much, hit the thumbs up button as well. It creates instant engagement, as does your comments. So let me know what you think during the entire course of the video, and let me know at what point you realize that Hollywood's in big trouble. Let's talk first about this. From That Park Place, our friend Trevor Detting over there wrote, Sony Pictures offering targeted buyouts instead of mass layoffs. Well, for now, and that's kind of the whole point of the article. On February 17th, we have this article coming out about Sony and the fact that they are doing what they can to try to keep everything from crumbling. Once one of these studios shows the signs of the crumble, they're all in the same position and they're all in the same boat together. It's one of the reasons why I always thought that negotiations 3 years ago were going to lead to a disastrous decision by all of the guilds and by the studios themselves, and that's exactly what's happened. We've got an exclusive report from Deadline coming out last Friday, and it revealed that Sony intends to offer targeted buyouts to executives in select areas. What are those areas? Well, there had reportedly been speculation that the buyout offer would extend across the studio. However, the more selective approach suggests that Sony is looking to make small changes to its corporate structure and avoid those mass layoffs, which maybe, just maybe, will keep them from having to do it.
What would you say you do here?
While it is currently unclear how many executives or which departments would be impacted by this decision, the move continues a pattern of media restructuring in Hollywood, which isn't going to stop anytime soon. Those are my thoughts on the matter, and let me tell you why. In order to avoid having mass number of people have to leave their employment, they have to figure out, do we really need this position? Do we really need that one? What amount of money is going to get these people to walk away? Sometimes it's a small buyout payment that will allow them to live comfortably for a period of time, but probably have to go back to work elsewhere. Whereas in other instances, it's going to be akin to a golden parachute just to rid themselves of future expenses, which a lot of middle management is.
I have 8 different bosses right now.
I beg your pardon?
8 bosses.
8?
8, Bob.
And that's kind of the area I think they're looking at. So, restructuring across Hollywood is going on. According to Deadline sources, Sony will be offering exit packages to executives in areas identified as having less growth potential.
Sony.
In fact, read into that what you will, but that could be anything from different development positions in television and film to like entire departments that are going to be replaced by something like AI or outsourcing, which is a huge issue if you think about what could be outsourced in Hollywood. Anyway, by removing tenure from the equation, Sony appears to be prioritizing role relevance over seniority, suggesting a shift towards structural efficiency rather than simple cost cutting, which makes a huge amount of sense. The entire entertainment industry has experienced significant layoffs in recent months, restructuring after COVID, the recent strikes, and changing audience behavior may be forcing studios to trim staff. The impending acquisition of Warner Brothers by either Paramount or Netflix will also likely shake up the fragile media ecosystem, and together these shifts reflect an industry recalibrating for and after years of disruption. And I think it's not over. I think disruption is here to stay in Hollywood, and that's going to cause a lot of other studios to look deeply into what they're really going to be doing in the future and how many people they need to do that. AI is going to make an impact. So are the certain numbers of productions that they've scaled back on. If you haven't noticed, film starts in the LA area have been cut by nearly 50% over the course of the last 5 years, and especially in the last 3. And there's a reason for that. It's expensive to film in California, and the tax offsets don't really do much for most of these productions. It does a little bit. It allows them to make a few things that are close to home, but for the most part, you're going to see outsourced game shows before you see a Hollywood shot procedural. At least that's what is rumored to be happening in the future. Now, studios, including Sony, are investing heavily in AI-driven tools, as I've mentioned before, which could reduce layers of management and reshape staffing needs. In particular, when it comes to actually laying out a production, you could have the entire set shot list put together by the AI based on what the script looks like. It can do that. It can do a lot of other things as well. And as automation is going to be continuing to assist with scheduling, budgeting, data analysis, and development tracking, companies are going to require fewer mid-level executives to oversee processes that were once manual. And this is not just the beginning of something. It is the infancy of something. We're going to see even more jobs disappear. And that shift does not eliminate creative decision making, but it can alter the structure around it. And I think that's where the biggest cost savings are going to be realized. Anyway, the shift seems to be towards growth. Through the voluntary buyout, Sony is believed to be shifting its investments to growth areas of the business. The move aligns with Sony's broader growth-focused strategy, and on January 15th, the studio announced that the first of its kind global Pay One deal with Netflix. Yeah, that's just a one-off, but I anticipate this is going to be the kind of deal that other studios are going to try to shop with the world's biggest streamer. Sony doesn't have its own streaming service. They were smart. And there are a few other companies out there that may get out of the streaming business sooner rather than later, because with this kind of a partnership, you can monetize the things you're able to do really well and get rid of something that honestly has too much competition already and not a whole lot of profit. Just ask Disney. The deal means that by 2029, Netflix will have global streaming rights to Sony films after they leave theaters. It's an expansion of an agreement formed between Sony and Netflix in 2021 for US streaming rights. And it seems like one of the most logical moves I've ever seen. In a press release, Sony said that some of the first films that will stream on Netflix as part of the deal include Nintendo's live-action The Legend of Zelda, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, the conclusion to the Spider-Verse trilogy, and Sam Mendes' quartet of Beatles films. Fascinating. And I think this is just the beginning of a movement that has substantial momentum. Hollywood costs too much, and it has for a long time. And even outsourcing production outside of the country costs too much, especially if they start to add on foreign tariffs, which is something I would expect to see here in the next year or so, depending upon what a certain couple of court decisions are in the next few months. But this strategic recalibration is going to change the way that the industry works as a whole. People will be evaluated based on what they can provide versus what AI can provide. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of middle management jobs in Hollywood are going to be gone. Production assistants will become less necessary, or there'll be fewer of them. And there are a lot of different jobs on a set that could be not eliminated, but minimized, and that'll change a lot of things in the unions as well. This is bad news for the workers, but it's equally bad news for the substantial amounts of management that have just done nothing but increase production costs. Jobs to create more union jobs isn't a good business strategy, and I think that Hollywood is starting to wake up. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the matter. What are yours? Do you see other studios kind of employing the same formula to try to drive some results that, well, reduce their staffing concerns and the cost of production? Do you think you'll see more studios lean into buyout deals than having direct layoffs? And finally, do you think the unions need to wake up and come to the realization that they may not have as many members anymore? And maybe that's a good thing. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, or if you think I'm terribly off base on my assessment. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. For real.